Hello and welcome to our first ever OLBG Friday night football hangout. Thanks for joining us, whether you're watching live or later on YouTube. We're going to hold these hopefully every Friday night to guide you through the weekend's action, talk about a few games and tell you what our members are betting on. You can get in touch with us via Twitter. You can ask us any questions you want as we go along or anything like that, and we'll go straight from there. So, first thing I'm going to do is introduce myself. My name's Samuel. I'm a keen Crystal Palace fan for my sins, and hopefully we'll guide you in the right direction to picking out some results this weekend. I introduced today the other person we've got on the panel. It's my colleague Steve. Steve, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yep, good evening. I'm Steve. I'm getting ready for the weekend's football. Not quite sure whether I'm preferring the FACup or the Premier League at present, but I'll also be keeping an eye on what Portsmouth are doing this weekend down in League Two as well.
So as you can tell, Steve is a very active, busy punter like a lot of you guys are out there as well. And don't be afraid to get in touch. We want as many of you, OLBG members or not, to get involved with the show. And we'll take you through what it's all about, really. And I suppose the first place we've got to start is, well, the biggest game of the weekend, which, unless you're a massive fan of the FA Cup, is going to be Manchester United, who are away at Chelsea. It's going to be a really interesting game. Let's be honest, it's probably going to decide the title if Chelsea get the 3 points. Team news is quite revealing. Manchester United have got a lot of injury problems. Looking at a probable back four of Shaw, Paddy McNair, Chris Smalling and Valencia, who, to my mind, has not been the most effective right back this season for Manchester United. It's up for a bit of a debate. What you can say about Man United this season, I think, Steve, I don't know whether you're going to agree with this or not, they've ground out results when they've needed to, and up until about February time, people were saying, oh, they're not playing great football, they're not getting results. I think they've had quite an effective season. They've won the last 5 games coming into this match. I just want to get your opinion on how you think their season's gone and whether you think they can get anything out of the game this weekend.
Well, there's an old cliche that it's a marathon and not a sprint, and they may have well started quite slowly this season, Sam, but they've certainly picked up speed in the closing stages of the season. Probably the gap's still a bit too big for them to catch Chelsea. Sitting 7 points clear at the moment, but they seem to be getting a lot of support at the price. They're a big price this weekend, 4.33, and I think that's going to tempt quite a lot of punters in. That said, by the same token, you can get better than evens on Chelsea for a home win, and hopefully we've got some people viewing and they can let us know what they think of those odds. The draw looks obvious at 5-2 as an alternative. You can't call it one way or another, but 4.33 for Manchester United is a big price home and away, regardless of who they're playing. And I think there's going to be people that are going to be keen to actually get on at that price.
I mean, I'm just looking at the OLBG app now, and at the moment, Manchester United are more popular than Chelsea, which I think is staggeringly surprising to me. But I'm only an individual, and I don't want to take on the collective might of the OLBG members because they're usually right more often than myself. But I can see whether people are getting attracted to the price. But, this is a Chelsea team who were very lucky last week to get away with a win at QPR. They've not played well, I don't think, since Christmas in this league. They've got knocked out of the Champions League. They're without their main front man. Drogba looks like he's going to be probably leading the line. He's not the Drogba of old. I mean, without Hazard this season, Chelsea wouldn't be anywhere near where they are in the league. And I can understand why there is hesitancy to want to back Chelsea at around just a shade better than evens money. For my mind, I think it's a game that you can savour and enjoy with or without a bet. But I would probably be leaning towards United. I can see where the members are coming from. They've ground out these results. Injuries or not, there are players there playing for their future, which I think a lot of people forget. Man United have had a transitional season this year. Wait till you see what happens in the summer. There won't be Falcao, he won't be staying. Van Persie's getting that little bit older. I think there could be wholesale changes to both Manchester United and actually to Chelsea as well. I don't know whether you want to try and give us a view whether if you're going to go against Chelsea, I want you to tell me their weakness, Steve, and why you couldn't be with them.
It's more about statistics for me and current form, and you'd have to argue that the Chelsea did look slightly dodgy last week, taking a long time to get past QPR, who got to be said, have been scoring goals for fun the last couple of weeks. But
Oh, they've vastly improved. Vastly improved.
yeah, a QPR defence though should be no match for the Chelsea attack. Looking at United and their form, if you look at Mata, he might not be the most popular Man United player, but he's had 3 goals and assists in his last 3 Premier League games. So he's driving something in from there, and I think it'll be interesting to see who gets the first goal. I've got a feeling that whoever scores the first goal is going to win this game. It's a bit of an obvious thing to say because obviously we get the goal advantage, but if United get the first goal, I think Chelsea may actually struggle to break them down.
It's a tricky one. I wouldn't want to be backing whoever's gonna. I wouldn't want to be playing the first goal scorer market. I wouldn't want to look at anything like that. I'd purely take United, and there's an option to trade there if they do get the first goal. Matic has been sensational this season for Chelsea, but I don't think defensively they've been strong enough. That's just my view on it. I think they've not been a team that's shown us why they deserve the Championship. I think it's come down to Manchester City's failings and the fact that no one's really kept up. If Arsenal had a quicker start to the year, I think they'd have been even closer than they are now. So for me, I'm a big fan of Jose Mourinho, but I don't think this is one of his vintage teams, and I expect to see some restructuring in the summer. We already heard that Oscar could be off. I'd be interested to see who he signs as a replacement. He's got to find another striker from somewhere because Remy and Costa just have not got the legs for me, and I think it's probably where Chelsea are going to be a little bit weak. He doesn't need a striker, I suppose. He has got Fabregas who can play as a false 9 like he did for Barcelona. He used to get Andre Schürrle to play that role. But for my money, Chelsea only need a draw in this game, so I would not be necessarily such a keen backer of them at around even money.
And they only need a draw to maintain a record that's seen them unbeaten in the Premier League for a whole year. April the 19th last year was the last time they were beaten at home by Sunderland. So, it is Stamford Bridge, it is strong. I don't know how much we should think about head-to-head records. Some people like head-to-head records, some people dismiss them because teams change, managers change and things. But Chelsea have only lost one of the last 12 Premier League home games against Manchester United. It almost sits on the bogey side, for Man United on that stat. So I'm slowly but surely talking myself out of Man United being a big price at 4.33, and perhaps it is actually correct.
Yeah, I head-to-head records I find very difficult to embrace and use statistically. I think especially the lower down the leagues you go because teams change so much. Premier League's a bit different, but both these sides in the last sort of 10 meetings, what would that be, over four seasons, they've both changed and completely revolutionised the way they play. They've had 3 different managers, Man United, in that time. Chelsea have had a couple. I won't go on head-to-head basis personally. That's just the way I'd like to look at my betting. But what I would say is Mourinho will be keen to crown his team as champion sooner rather than later. There's nothing else for them to play for. As good as United are, they're going to struggle with the injuries. I'm sitting on the fence a little bit here, but I would expect Chelsea to win. But if I had to have a bet, if you gave me a fiver, I'd be putting it on Man United. I just think their value at the prices.
Rooney to score?
You'd expect him to. He looks likely to line up as the sole striker, and when you consider this is Man United's strength, the players in behind that they're going to have creatively, you've got Juan Mata, who, interestingly, I saw a quote from Louis van Gaal who said he likes to have players that have played for former teams playing against them. Now, I'm not a massive fan of the psychology side of sport, but that was quite interesting to me. Juan Mata's going to be, whether he knows it or not, a man on a mission to show Mourinho that he was wrong to sell him. He was a huge fan's favourite, and he wasn't prepared to change the way he played to fit Mourinho's system. And Mourinho, credit to him, said sorry, sold him, and has re-strengthened the team. But he's going to have a massive point to prove. Di Maria, at times, has been one of the best players in this league. He just hasn't shown it on enough of a consistent basis to ever get rewarded with that kind of title. He can come up with something. I think Ashley Young's not been a player I've liked, but he's returning to a semblance of form. And then you've got a player like Fellaini that everyone thought was the most un-Manchester United player we'd ever seen. and he's playing pretty well for them. He picks up the goals, he can break up, he can start attacks. I actually think Fellaini's possibly a little bit underrated in this team, and a few people tell me, oh, he'll be likely to move on. I don't think he will. I think he may not necessarily build a team around him, but I think he has a future. And Herrera's fantastic. They paid a lot of money for him. He's just about coming right. So I think there's plenty of green shoots for Man United next season, and if they open the checkbook, could be a phenomenal year next year for them, and we'd have a proper title race, hopefully.
I'm just looking at the both teams to score market here as well. We've got evens for no and 1.91 for yes. Well, again,
I think
the market is tight there, because I think that is a tight call.
if you had to make me choose one, I'd be choosing both teams to score over one side to score and the other not. I can see Man United scoring. I don't think Chelsea are a defensive force to be reckoned with. I think they're good, but they're not perfect, and that's Man United's strength. The weakness is going to be at the back. Tahay is a fantastic goalkeeper. We saw his nomination in the PFA Awards this week, which I think is really justified. I would guess from the games I've seen of Man United this year, probably about 10 or 12 games, he has probably saved them at least 6 to 8 points this year.
Interestingly, over 2.5 goals is 2.1. So I mean, if you start looking at both teams to score at 1.9 or over 2.5, which way would you go there? I mean, we're basically saying there's not going to be a clean sheet then. So under 2.5 and a clean sheet, 1.77.
I'd probably play it cautiously and go both teams to score, because even though Man United are playing this weakened back four, I don't think the floodgates would open. I don't think they're that sort of team anymore, that they're not going to crumple. How many times have we seen Chelsea really let fly this season at home as well? I mean, I don't know about you, but from when I've seen them, I've always thought if you had to equate them to a racehorse, they just do enough to win. They just get there. They just get across the line. They've not been demolishing teams like Mourinho of old, and I don't think they're going to go for the throat here. They're playing quite conservatively. They'll happily take a lead, and it's been to their downfall some of the time. The Bradford game is a prime example in the FA Cup, where they'll then take a lead and sit back and sit. And I don't think they can afford to do that against Manchester United's forward front line. That would be the best hope for Man United, actually, if Chelsea don't come at them.
1-1 at Old Trafford in October, and then if you go back sort of 3 of the previous 4 games, they were all decided by a goal or the 0-0 back in August 2013. It's not traditionally a game that produces goals.
But then are Man United traditionally playing Chris Smalling and Paddy McNair, who's played 5 first-team games this season at centre-back?
Yeah,
I think... Yeah, well, there you go. To be fair to him, he will be a good defender, but this is deep water to be in. The experience of someone like Drogba, you know, when you've got a 3 behind of William, Fabregas and Hazard coming at you, I just think he's going to be a little bit out of his depth. It depends how United line up. A few of the sites have got them going 4-5-1. I actually think it'd be more of a 1-3-2 with Fellaini and Herrera helping out the back four. I can see why people wouldn't want to go for over 2.5. It's a bit of a coin toss in this kind of game, I think. I'd sooner go crazy and back United to win, because if they go 1 goal up, you're in a comfortable position then to have a little look at your other options. But it'll be a good game. I honestly think, you know, people are going to have the choice between this game and one we'll cover a little bit later, which is the Arsenal FA Cup game, which is a real shame. Both good occasions, but I know who I'd rather be watching. I think this is a fascinating game, personally.
It is, yeah, without a doubt, it's going to be a good game. The option is obviously the FA Cup, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. I think I might actually be a bit boring and be siding with the draw. I don't know though. Evens for the 7-point leaders of the Premier League.
How often do we see evens about Chelsea at home to anyone? You know, if you take Man City out, maybe Arsenal, that's it. You know, but this is...
2 isn't a value price on any draw in any game. So yeah, on that basis, I think I personally would be siding with Chelsea. How's it looking on the app at the moment?
Well, just about. You're just about wrong at the moment, Steve, I'm afraid, because our members at the moment, we're heading towards Manchester United with around 36%. 31% going for the draw, which I think is quite big. Don't usually see nearly a third of people backing a draw in any game. And Man United Chelsea have got their supporters around the 33% mark. So it's tight. And I do think as we move closer to the match, I think more of our members will come in for support of Chelsea. It tends to be ones that I think are looking for a bit of value, that are the early birds in there. And Manchester United's team news came out today that they were struggling for players, especially in defence. And it's not put people off backing them. You know, they've seen those 5 W's next to their name, and a lot of people do go on recent form. And there's a lot of players in that Man United team that are going to be playing for their survival in the team next year. I mean, Luke Shaw's a prime example. If he starts, he's a man that came with a huge price tag and he's really failed to deliver.
I think, so you're definitely on the United side then, 100%.
I'm going to go for, you know what, I'm going to go for United in this. I think I want a bit of a price. I think it's a huge gamble to do so, but if anyone can win a game like this when they've got injury problems but they're in good form and they've got firepower, I can't leave Man United alone at that price.
Okay, well I'm going to take a very rare evens about Chelsea. You're with United. OLBG are with United. I'm the outsider tonight.
The draw's nailed on then.
Yeah, almost certainly. We'll talk about the FA Cup in a little while, but we've got a fascinating thing going on, a fascinating contest for promotion to the Premier League next season in the Championship. Bournemouth top of the table, or at least they were up until a little while ago. Middlesbrough 1-0 up at Carrow Road at Norwich at the moment, and looking to go top. Well, in fact, either of these sides can go top tonight. Norwich play Sheffield Wednesday tomorrow. I think the only other team that probably in with a realistic chance of the automatic place now are Watford. They've got a home game against, I can't remember who now.
Is it Birmingham?
Yes, it is Birmingham. Who's going to be top of the Championship tomorrow?
I think if you want, I think I'm going to ask 2 questions. That one, Bournemouth, and I think Bournemouth are also going to win it. Their running is quite conservatively nice. That's a league where you don't want to be playing teams that have got something to play for. The Championship's notorious for having 7 or 8 teams involved in a relegation scrap and playoffs come the last day of the season. Unfortunately, as a Crystal Palace fan, I know how perilous that league can be towards the end of the season. Bournemouth are playing teams that haven't got that much to be worried about. It's in their hands. That's what I think is probably going to make the difference for me. But
additionally, a team that have a huge run of form and come from nowhere to either get in the playoffs or snatch an automatic place. If you're going to take the teams that are outside of those top 4 at present, then Ipswich would probably qualify for that, or maybe Wolverhampton. Norwich are top of the current form at the moment, but that's all going to change if they don't get anything back against Borough tonight. Can anybody outside that top 4 get involved? I don't. I would love to see Bournemouth win it. I used to go and watch Bournemouth in the 90s when I lived down there, and it's a really nice, feel-good club, and of course it's owned by the fans as well, as Portsmouth is now. But I think it was around about Christmas time. I was chatting to a friend who's a season ticket holder down there, and said, you know, it's fantastic that Bournemouth are at the top of the Championship at this stage, but you know, will it last? And he was fairly confident that it was. I mean, he knows a lot more about the club and the players than I do, and I've got to be honest, I have backed against them a couple of times in recent weeks, just on the basis that they're at the top of the tree, they're there to be shot at. I'm expecting the nerves and the wobbles. I mean, Bournemouth and Premier League are just not 2 things that seem to go together, and I just keep thinking at some point they're going to falter, and it's going to be a real sad story for Bournemouth. They've been in the playoffs a couple of times in the last 10 years when they've got to the Championship, and they've nosedived back down the divisions again. And I can just see this real sort of sad ending of them being pipped into 3rd or something, and then losing out in the playoffs. They just keep delivering week after week.
And they're delivering an entertaining football. They've got Eddie Howe there, who's a manager that my team, Crystal Palace, tried to get hold of. He wouldn't go. He obviously spent some time up north at Burnley. It didn't work out. He went back to Bournemouth. And he's a fantastic ambassador for the club, the town. And he's got them playing good football on a relatively small budget, from what I understand as well, about the finances there. My point I would make is you're completely right. And here's a little bit of a longer term betting tidbit that I'll always take into mind. I think the one thing in the playoffs, it sounds corny to say, you need momentum. If you're Norwich, Watford, Middlesbrough, or Bournemouth, and you get pipped to that automatic spot, two of them will end up in the playoffs. Now, if Middlesbrough go top tonight, and you're Watford, the pressure's on. Norwich, if they lose another game, that'll be it. They'll probably be in the playoffs because there's those two spots. I would say I'd be all over whoever finishes 6th and 5th. And scrapes in. If Brentford get in, or if Wolves get in ahead of Ipswich, or possibly Derby, that probably won't be caught. I think Derby are probably the team that are going to be most comfortable there, and I would oppose whichever ones miss out on the title from being promoted in the playoffs.
I've got a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
If Bournemouth get promoted, whether that be automatic or whether it be through the playoffs, who will be their manager next season?
If Bournemouth get promoted,
yeah,
I don't think they'd change the manager. Are you suggesting?
Is there anybody local that would be available?
I'd have thought that the Bournemouth chairman may have learnt from the mistakes that the Portsmouth chairman made. I'm not the first person that said this at all.
I mean, what about director of football? He could come in as director of football. You know, give Eddie till mid-October at least. I mean, it's speculative at this stage, but I don't know. Redknapp has got to get involved with Bournemouth at some point.
I'd like to think his stock's probably fallen quite considerably after the debacle at QPR this year. I've never been a massive fan of Harry Redknapp. I was pretty opposed to him getting the England job, and for whatever reason he didn't get it. I think there was outside pressures there. I just don't like him as a football manager. I think he has done some wonderful things for teams, but then he has left them in some awful positions as well. And as someone that lived in Portsmouth when they won the FACup, I also then still lived in Portsmouth when the team was getting picked apart, relegated, and had no money. So I'm a little bit indifferent towards Mr. Redknapp, and I hope Bournemouth and the chairman there, if they do go up, wouldn't be that naive. Norwich deserve to be up there, in my view. They're a huge club. I think they were a little bit unfortunate when they came down out the Premier League. It's going to be interesting. I just had a tweet in from at Mike Baker, and he's asked us. He said, "Do you not think Middlesbrough, if they win tonight, will go top and stay there?" I backed Middlesbrough to go up this year, Mike. So I'm hopeful they do, but I don't. They haven't had the staying power for me, Middlesbrough, and they're 1-0 up at the moment. So who knows?
It's an old cliche. I mean, it is. If Bournemouth win all their games, they can't. Be beaten. But it's the end of the season. It's the championship. Anything can happen. Anything could happen.
This is a great league to as an outsider, as someone that's been in this league for long enough. I never want to go back to it, but it's a great league to watch because it is genuinely exciting, and we mustn't forget to talk about teams down the bottom. I mean, it looks a huge order now for Wigan to get back into it. They faced a big game against Brighton this weekend, and
I saw some odds on Brighton, and I'm just on it. Just trying to find the odds now. 100 to 1 to go down. They're not out of trouble.
I think with 46 points, that would sometimes get you across the line. But this year, the bottom of the championship is so condensed now, looking at it. Realistically, you've got Bolton on 50, who should be okay. Reading, who have to play an FA Cup semi-final this weekend, mathematically, they're not out of it. Millwall have got this game in hand, and it's going to be that last place they're playing for. I can't see Wigan getting out of it unless they beat Brighton about 3-0. I think it's too late for them, and it's a real shame. It's been such a success story for them. Let's not forget they got relegated after winning the FA Cup, so Reading could possibly pull a similar surprise if they can get past Arsenal at the weekend. But it'll be tough. I wouldn't bet against Millwall getting out of it down there. They have a tendency to be real fighters. Neil Harris has come in. He's getting just winning games however they can. And I wouldn't put you off your Brighton bet, but I'd say Fulham are probably the ones that could get caught.
Have they not come to a little bit, just recently come back into form though? I'm sure, I'm just going to have a look at that now. I'm pretty sure Fulham have undone a couple of my bets over the last few weeks, somewhere along the line.
They've been inconsistent this year. They've still got a few overpaid, what you describe as Premiership players, but they've drawn an awful lot. Their last 3 games have been draws. Now, if they'd won 2 of them, they'd be well out of trouble. If they'd won 1 of them, they'd probably be fine. But draws aren't good enough.
50 to 1 if you think Fulham will go down.
That's definitely worth £1 for me. I mean, the only disadvantage is they face Blackpool this weekend, who are already relegated. Now, you would expect the rational person in your head says, oh, that's 3 points for Fulham then. That hasn't been the case with Blackpool. Apart from the game against Derby, they have surprised a few people with their performances, and the pitch up there is not unlike playing on the beach. So hey, who have Fulham got in their last 2 games? Shall I tell you?
Go on.
Middlesbrough at home, and they leave the last day of the season. They play Norwich away.
That's not so clever.
So if they don't get the 3 points against Blackpool by some mere miracle, which only takes them to 49, Millwall have got a game in hand. I honestly think that 50 to 1. I wouldn't bet on Blackpool beating them, but I'd like to have £1 on 50 to 1 that they might go down.
Yeah, so in terms of how many points they're going to get, it looks like they're going to get more points. Brighton are going to get more points in those final games. Millwall to get out of it. If Millwall do get out of it, I guess it's going to have to be at the expense of Rotherham. But like you say, 50 to 1 to Fulham is certainly worth a shilling of anyone's money, I think.
I just think at this stage of the season, you can't. Rotherham. They've got to face Reading, who aren't out of it, that will need the points and probably have been dumped out the FA Cup. And then they've got a derby in the last day of the season playing Leeds, sorry.
Right, we've got to get to FA Cup at some point. It's coming up for half time at Carrow Road. Middlesbrough still 1-0 up. Bournemouth and Watford tomorrow then, what are they going to do?
I will have wins for both. Boring, but I think it seems to be the way that the app's leaning as well. Not many people are able to oppose Bournemouth, not in current form anyway. I think they're a good bet. They play such confident attacking football, which I love to see. They've had a few wobbles where they might go 1 down. I think they were 2 down the other week and came straight back.
Yeah, ridiculous.
They're not a team. Sheffield Wednesday, I don't think they're really in danger of anything happening for their season. To give you some idea, Steve, at the moment, we've got around 33 tips on the game. 26 of them are for Bournemouth. There's an 81% confidence rating behind them. They're only around the 1.36 mark. They're not going to make you rich, but they're going in my accumulator.
They're scoring 2 goals a game as well.
And that's enough to win most games, especially at home. You'd expect in the Championship. I think there's a bit of a...
Wednesday have conceded 9 in their last 6 as well, so they're susceptible to defensive mistakes. And I think I agree with you. It's going to be a comfortable win for them. 1.36 best price. Watford 1.44.
I think I'd rather be backing Bournemouth than Watford if you had to make me pick one over the other. Only because Birmingham have thrown a few weird results out there in the past, but I think they're both good things.
Bournemouth, Watford double then.
Very boring.
How's Norwich and Middlesbrough going to end up?
I think it'll be 1-1. I think Norwich will grab a goal. I just think... I've just got a funny feeling. Maybe it's because I need Middlesbrough to win the league, because I've thought they would all along. They just have thrown away so many good opportunities, Middlesbrough. They don't seem to do it the easy way. I feel for their fans. And they probably deserve a trip back to the Premier League, Middlesbrough. They were a big club. They suffered, when we think they got to the final of the UEFA Cup. They're Gareth Southgate as their captain. They were a good little team. Then things fell apart. Shows you how easy it is to fall out of that Premier League and then never come back.
Yeah, for sure. 1.75 to if you fancy Middlesbrough to hold out here in play. The draw's at 9-4, same as it was before kick-off.
I'd probably let it go. I'd probably let it go for now. How big are Norwich?
5.5, 9-2 now.
Oh, my money's on Norwich then. I'll take a little punt on Norwich. I think at the prices. I'll have a
Liverpool
fixture
are coming
pound.
back.
They've got a whole half to do it, right? But really, just at half time, yeah. That league teams, Middlesbrough will go 1-1, then Norwich will go looking for it. They're not a draw is going to be no good to either of them.
No, for sure. Yeah. No. I think I think we already know that I'm on Middlesbrough already, so I know what I'm hoping for this game.
It's a difficult one to call, this league though, and a lot of people tell me they won't bet on it, they will bet on it. My view on it is, if you can get 5 results right in the Championship in a weekend, you're probably going to get a really good return. You know, yeah, if you can get 5 results right, a 5-team accumulator in this league, I think is personally the hardest one to try and find 5 winners in.
Honestly, if you can get a 5-team accumulator up across any of the leagues, I think that's a decent thing. So I'm just looking at what OLBG tipsters were going for prior to the game, and predictably they were on Norwich 1.95 against Middlesbrough 4 point. Do you know what? Those odds are quite similar to Chelsea Man United. You know.
Yeah, I think I'd have been on Norwich pre-game though. I'll be honest. I've not been the biggest Borough fan.
We shall see. But we've got the half-time break coming up now. We'll know a little bit more before we finish later on. But I think we ought to move on to the FA Cup that everybody loves, and we'll be tuning out of on Sunday afternoon. Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, the Arsenal game, isn't it? Arsenal versus Reading. I'd like to say that we need 15 minutes to talk about this because it's going to be enthralling, but I think the OLBG tipsters have done it for me.
Arsenal win?
88% of them are going for an Arsenal win. Now, don't forget, this is 90-minute betting, guys, as well. That's the other thing to mention. You've always got to be a bit careful. I seem to remember a couple of my friends thinking Arsenal were a good thing against Hull in the final, lumped on an awful lot of money for them to win. They did, but it wasn't in 90 minutes. They came back from nearly losing the whole thing and then won in extra time, which is an even bigger sucker punch. 1.25 is your current price you'll be looking for on the app. You're shaking your head at me, Steve. It's a pure thing. Why are we not putting it in the accumulator?
I wouldn't be. No, it's the FA Cup. It's the semi-final. It's at Wembley. Anything can happen. I know it's the big occasion. The experience is going to be on the Arsenal side, but I couldn't be back. I wouldn't want to back 1.25 in any normal circumstances. FA Cup semi-final at Wembley against the Reading team, who, it's a cliche again, but it's their cup final almost. They've done this. No, I couldn't back Arsenal. Not at the price. I'd have to be looking at a different market, I think, to play on this.
Yeah, I'm flicking through it now. You may end up opting for something like if you think Reading have got the firepower. I mean, you can back Arsenal to win and only them to score at 1.91. If you don't think Reading have got any firepower. Pavel Podolski is due to come back for Reading after overcoming a calf problem. He never set the world alight for me at Spurs, let alone at Reading when they got relegated with him leading the line. He probably can't just afford to shift him on with his wages. They've got some good loan players, Reading. They play some okay football, but yeah, the one thing I can give you about this game is I remember the absolutely epic game that they played out in. I think it was the League Cup at the time, which was about 7-5, sorry, in extra time, and it was absolutely fantastic. I can't see Reading scoring 1 goal, let alone 5 on Saturday. Sorry, I don't know what your view is, Steve, but do you think Reading can notch a goal against Arsenal?
I'd like to say yes, but I think being sort of a Portsmouth fan for as long as I was, and always being the underdog, you always sort of dream that the underdog will score. Give the fans something to cheer about. It'd be wonderful if Reading could score the first goal. That would be absolutely fantastic for the Reading fans, because at least they'll be able to go home having celebrated something in the game. There's nothing worse than
4-1, is it? If you lose 4-1, that's not going to make them happy. Come on, you can't.
You don't want to go to Wembley and just sit and watch your team get absolutely hammered. I'm not saying it's definitely going to happen, but I'm not even saying it's going to be likely that it's going to happen. But it would be nice to see Reading get one, and hopefully the first one or even an equaliser. Um, it, yeah, I think they could score. I mean, you can get better than evens for both teams to score. I'm not sure that is particularly good value.
It's a game that's going to prove difficult to really get involved in. A lot of people will chuck Arsenal in their accumulators, and I don't blame them. I wouldn't look at handicap markets or anything like that for a cup game because it can be cagey. If Reading are set out properly by their manager, who I think actually is quite a clever manager, they can quite easily get to half-time 0-0. Then suddenly you don't want to be sat on a -1 bet if it's 0-0 at half-time. I wouldn't feel too comfortable around that. So for me, I'd say Arsenal will win, but I wouldn't have any. I don't think it's going to be a mauling. I don't think it'll be 6 or 7 or anything awful like that. People seem to expect that result. There's only one division between them.
Not in a semi-final.
No.
You know, where was the last semi-final to contain that number of goals? We'll probably tell the last. 1.57 for over 2.5. Again, that's based on that. The semi-finals don't tend to be really open games.
My argument would be
1.57 for. I mean, based on what we're expecting, which is an Arsenal win, and Reading struggling to score, as we've discussed, you're now looking at Arsenal. You're backing Arsenal 1.57 to score 3 goals. Again, that wouldn't be for me. Both teams to score, maybe. How about Reading to win to 0 at 22 to 1?
No, you can add a 0 to it, Steve, and I still probably wouldn't be tempted. I'll be fair, sometimes you've got to let a game pass you by and you can watch it for the interest, or you'll be switching over to watch the Chelsea-Man United game, let's be honest. So I think I'll let this one go, but I can't put anyone off Arsenal winning in 90 minutes. I would say I wouldn't play handicaps or anything like that in this sort of game. It's not something to get too excited about unless you support either club, of course.
Do you back goal scorers at all, Sam?
I do. I am a big fan of it. The anytime goal scorers interest me more than first. I never understand in football why people won't take each way about a first goal scorer if they're taking anything bigger than 4-1. It's hard to do with some of the strikers in a lot of the teams now. But for someone like myself, if you want to flutter in this game for a bit of fun, find out your Reading centre-back that goes up for corners and has notched a few goals and take an each-way price about him scoring from a set play. Because
good point. You don't have to put a lot. You're not risking a lot. The risk versus reward is quite good.
I mean, you'd be looking at someone like Giroud, who's going to be your favourite for Arsenal to score first. I'm guessing he's going to be around 4.0. That's it's not, when you think he's got competition that may even be on the pitch in Welbeck and Sanchez that could quite happily pop up. I'll let that one go all day long. Maybe if you wanted an Arsenal first goal scorer, I'd take one of their penalty takers, Carl Zola, who takes their set plays as well. But I think as people that embrace social punting and enjoy the fun side of betting, you don't need a bet in this game, I don't think. And if you desperately want one, just put Arsenal in your accumulator and it'll boost it up a couple of points.
1.25 in your accumulator.
Yeah, chuck it in there.
You could well be right. What about Arsenal to score in both halves? Again, you don't need to, do you? That's the problem with a bet
Arsenal
like that.
3-0 up at half-time. Second half, Reading are at them. They're at them. I don't know. Wenger's also got one eye on the league. Don't forget. Imagine he's 3-0 up at half-time and he hears that Man United are 2-0 up down the road at Chelsea.
Yeah, for sure.
He's got one very good defensive midfielder in Coquelin that's the only one standing. I can't believe he'll let him play 90 minutes if they're cruising and the score down the road is slightly different. It'd be very interesting, actually. The one thing I might have open while I'm watching both these games with an eye on each, if Man United start winning at Chelsea, have a little look at the in-running markets for the Premier League title race.
Of course, this game actually kicks off 10 minutes before, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, it's a 5:20 kick-off and Chelsea-Man United 5:30.
I would just be very interested to see what Wenger does if he's in cruise control and suddenly... Listen, it would be quite a turn-up for the books of both these things to happen, but there's a big part of me that just wonders, could we see an Arsenal team that are coming to the boil at the right time? They've never done this before, apart from when they've won leagues and they've gone consistently unbeaten. I've never seen an Arsenal team in my lifetime that have slowly built and they're peaking at the right time. Maybe a little bit late, I suppose, some might say. but they've got a little bit of destiny in their own hands with the games that they've got to play in the league. On the back of a cup win, it'd be a heck of a title race if Chelsea dropped some points.
So let's say Arsenal come out all guns firing, Giroud's on form, pops one in, Sanchez gets another. You know, let's just take Arsenal to be leading at half time. Getting a little bit of a cushion so that Wenger can start thinking about the Premier League. You know, is he going to do something with his substitutions to save some legs for that? Will he risk a final play? You know, he's not going to want to go to a semi-final replay because that would actually work against the idea, if you get what I mean. Is he going to want to put this game to bed early? I mean, you can get 4-6, 1.66 on Arsenal to be leading at half time. Now that I think I could entertain.
I just maybe it's the Conservatives part of my sports betting brain that's saying stop. Arsenal will be 0-0 at half time. They'll win it 1-0, scrappy goal. Listen, I'll be honest, Reading haven't impressed me enough to think that they're going to make a lot of the game of it. They struggle past Bradford, who, yes, are a good cup team. Yes, they knocked Chelsea out, but they're still in a league below Reading. You know, they're not a quality team. And Reading are struggling for survival in the Championship this season. If the results had gone against them, they'd be a lot further down and nearer the bottom than they are. For me...
Right. United hadn't started picking up a bit of form towards the end of the season, they wouldn't be in a position to possibly challenge for the title. So, yeah, it's all ifs and buts. This is a one-off game at Wembley for the FACup semi-final.
I'm going to go really boring, Steve. My selection, I'm going to give it to you now because we've got to move on to the slightly more exciting semi-final, I have to say. And I'm going to go for an Arsenal win. This season's Arsenal have probably been, for me, one of the most entertaining and effective teams. If they go and sign a half-decent striker in the summer that will score 20 goals a season, and if they pick up another defensive midfielder, I think they're there or thereabouts.
Okay, I'll agree with you. At the end of the day, it'd be a brave person to take Reading to win in 90 minutes. They may very well get the 90 minutes and keep... Anything can happen in extra time. And God forbid anything beyond that. But I don't enjoy betting. In fact, I won't even entertain betting odds of 1.25. But having now noticed 1.66 or 4-6 on Arsenal to be winning at half time, that is something that I would entertain. So I'll take them to be winning at half time and
fingers crossed they are.
Yeah,
lovely. Yeah. Well, now we'll move on to the semi-final that I think's got a lot more of a chance of what you could conceive as an upset, and that's Aston Villa who take on Liverpool. Teams that probably both of them would accept at the start of the season had higher hopes where they've ended up. Liverpool, of course, had that fantastic run last year that ended in a bit of a slippery disaster for Steven Gerrard and co, and they fell apart towards the end of it. And Aston Villa, who this season, well, just got dragged further and further down till Tim Sherwood's appeared and become a bit of a messiah, possibly. Steve, I'll get your thoughts to start before I run through some team news.
Well, I'm just going to look to see what Stan Collingwood's saying.
Oh, that's always a dangerous thing to do. My view on this...
Yeah, actually, it's all political, as usual, so...
Okay, we'll not worry about that.
Tim Sherwood has got... We're just talking about semi-finals that don't have a lot of goals. I think this one's got potential for goals. I can just see something crazy happening here.
I actually spoke to a lot of our members on Facebook. Don't forget we're on Facebook, just search us OLBG. You can like us, we put all different content up there. We love your reactions to different sporting events. Just get involved with us on there. But we actually put up what we thought the bet of the weekend was, and Benteke to score any time was somebody's selection, and I couldn't, Tim Sherwood, for his faults as a manager, people don't like his sound bites. The one thing he does do, he gets strikers that are difficult players. See case study of Adebayor, now Benteke, he gets them scoring goals.
Villa, they're just such a... they're a big club. They're a big club that's been struggling for a long time. You never know what you're going to get with Villa. They go through periods of not scoring goals, getting hammered, getting beaten soundly week in, week out, and then suddenly get a run of form of putting a few games together. I know Sherwood certainly has played a big part in that. This is a game that I will take both teams to score for absolute certain. I can see Liverpool opening the scoring. I can see Villa getting one back, and I can just see the game completely opening up. Liverpool can look really messy at times. Villa aren't the most slick footballing side in the Premier League by any means. But if Liverpool panic, if Liverpool suddenly if Villa get their backs up against the wall, I think this game could really open up and we could see some goals. And I'd be more than tempted to play the overs in this at 1.92 with Bet Victor. I think that's a cracking price for over 2.5.
Yeah, I mean, I just looked at that. I'd probably go with both teams to scores 1.91, over 2.5. I'm showing here is 1.9. I think the one thing Tim Sherwood's team will do is score a goal. I don't necessarily think they'll beat Liverpool, but where do Liverpool's strengths lie? It is not their defending. Where does Villa's strength lie? In their attacking. You know, we think Liverpool are going to be without Daniel Sturridge, who hasn't been an amazing player this year because of his knocks and different bits and pieces, but we know he provides the goals. You know, they're then left with your likes of Balotelli, Lambert. You know, they're not inspiring confidence. And, you know, you've got the returning Steven Gerrard, who he's going to be fit because he's been sat there waiting to play. He played in a practice game recently. You know, but are we putting Steven Gerrard in the team because he deserves to be there or because he's being shoehorned in for this farewell tour? You know, some of the players that have really stepped up in his absence. And Jordan Henderson is a player I'll be honest, hold my hands up, I never thought he was that good. This season, I think he's up there with Liverpool's best player for me. Coutinho's fantastic. He produces occasional bits of magic. Sterling is a very good player, but probably won't be a Liverpool player next season. I honestly think they're very lucky to have a player like Jordan Henderson.
I wrote an article probably towards the end of last season. It might have been in the close season, actually, on Liverpool. And I think that I think Hodgson actually signed him, didn't he?
Yeah.
I think Hodgson was one of his last signs. I think Henderson changed Liverpool for the better as well. Since he come on, since he came in, I think they've looked. I think it's how long's he been there? Whenever it was, I mean, he was the perfect replacement for Gerrard. The perfect accompaniment, if you like, or complement for Gerrard. I think Henderson is a star player for Liverpool, and I think without him, the team, you know, they can get on far better without Gerrard than they can with Henderson.
The Gerrard of this season, I think, will agree. I just, you know, he has been a fantastic. I think Steven Gerrard. The problem is, I'm a massive fan of his, and I look back at FA Cup games he's won single-handedly. You only look at the West Ham final. You know, I'd call that the Steven Gerrard final. The goal he scores to absolutely rocket it in and get them back into the game to win it. But he's not that player anymore. He can't play that. They tried playing him a bit deeper. It's not necessarily worked. You know, that tackle he put in the United game, you know, play with passion, but that was just mind-blowing stupidity for a man that's of his age and his experience. I would just like to see, from the point of the game, I think Villa need to take an early goal, and then that will really spice it up. But I'll ask you this question. If Liverpool don't win this game and get to the final at least, and have a chance against probably Arsenal, I think their season's been a failure. If they don't secure Cup final at least, and if they don't, because they're not going to do much in the league now, they're probably not going to get the fourth spot. You know, this is all they've got, and I just wonder if the pressure will tell. You know, Brendan Rodgers has had to come out and defend his players again this week. You know, Jordan Ayew and Raheem Sterling, you know, on the front page of the papers for all the wrong reasons. He's not signing a new deal. I just feel for him. I think he's got a lot on his plate at Liverpool.
I think Rodgers is a decent manager personally, and I think from what I see on Twitter and Facebook and things, I think that the Liverpool fans are divided, but maybe just on the side of Rodgers. Just looking at the game and the possible outcome, so much goes out of the window in a cup semi-final, and I think Liverpool at 1.62. I wouldn't be. Yeah, again, I think there's going to be goals in this game. I think it could go either way, and if I was going to back one team to win, if I was going to make a 90 minutes call, let's forget about the draw and go into a tie. I think 11-2 for Aston Villa to win this game.
Massive. Yeah, I'm glad you see it that way, because I agree. I mean, if you think they're going to cancel each other out, you can get Villa and draw at 2.3. It's not my bag personally, but plenty of people like it. I mean, Villa 1-0 is only 14-1. Now, I don't think I'd want to be that conservative, but my argument is Villa now, if you watch the way they play with their separate players, Benteke's getting the ball up to him a lot quicker. Sometimes it bypasses midfield because it is more direct. But you've got players like Gabi Abong-Lahore playing off him, who's still people think he's young. He's just a very quick player. He's been at Villa for years, but they're going to really trouble Liverpool's makeshift defence. You know, you've got pace and you've got power and two very good finishers. I really would fancy Villa to outscore Liverpool if this was a scoring contest.
So you've got Liverpool at 8.5 for 2-1, or Villa 2-1 18.
To me,
again, it's a no-brainer. If both teams are going to score, I'm going to go for a decider for Villa at that price. I won't back. Well, I don't know. I'm talking myself into backing the correct score here, which is unusual for me. But if Villa are going to win, they're not going to win 2-0, 3-0. I think I'm convinced both teams are going to score, and I think if I was going to pick a bet for this game now, I'm not going to back Villa to win at 11-2. I'm going to back Villa to win at 2-1.
Yeah, and I think that we mentioned first goal scorer bets, and I said I don't like strikers at anything less than 4-1. Well, I can have 8-1 around Christian Benteke, first goal scorer. As an each way play, it's not too painful either. You're going to get more than your money back if he pops up with a goal later on in the game. For me, I just think Liverpool, this game will make or break it for Brendan Rodgers, and he's got a difficult summer ahead. If Sterling leaves and Gerrard goes, yes, they've got a bit of money to replenish with, but this is a Liverpool team that this time last year was still in the title hunt and were probably going to win the title.
Coutinho's fit, isn't he?
Yeah, Coutinho, and he's a good player. He's a great player.
30-yard streamer?
He's going to have to. Unless Balotelli has decided that he's going to now become this player that we've always wanted him to become.
Striker?
But he promised so much, and he's never delivered anything like it for Liverpool. I was speaking to a couple of Liverpool fans on our Google Plus page who had been to the friendly game that was hosted recently. Jamie Carragher captained the team, and so did Steven Gerrard. And they said Balotelli scored the most wonderful goal. And I thought to myself, but he's doing that in a charity game. This is a man that's not retired. He's not semi-retired. You're paying him X amount a week. He is a good footballer. He doesn't become a bad footballer overnight. And I like Brendan Rodgers too, but I just don't think it was his signing. I'm not convinced it was his, or if it was his signing, he's not a Liverpool player. And I don't think he ever will be, and I think he'll be off in the summer as well.
So, your call on the game?
I'm going to go for... Do you know what? I've backed short things all night. I'm going to go for Villa to win in 90 minutes at the price, and I'll have a little go at Benteke any time.
Cool.
Well, I'll go first goal scorer. I'll go first goal scorer, 8-1.
All right then. So I wonder what price we can get on Benteke and Villa 2-1, because 2-1 is going to be my call. I'm going to be brave on it.
About 50-1, I'd guess, if you want to have a dabble on the scorecasts.
I'd rather have 50-1 about that than 50-1 on Fulham getting relegated, I think.
Well, yeah. You've got a bit of longer term value in the Fulham bet, at least. If they go and lose to Blackpool, you'd be laughing.
Right, I'll tell you what I want to ask as well. I obviously went to Wembley with Portsmouth in 2008 and again in 2010. We did go to the final twice, relatively recently. But I also went for the semi-finals. They're here to stay at Wembley. It's not going to go back to neutral ground. They're not going to be playing at Hillsborough or one of the London grounds now. But I still feel it takes an edge off of the FACup. Or do you think now that, as we can see with tomorrow, people wanting to watch Chelsea and Man United rather than the FA Cup? Do people just not care anymore?
I think the FA Cup is attendance-wise, it's actually come back this year. I don't think that tells the full story, though. I think more clubs are trying to do more and offering cheaper prices, which is great for fans to see football. I would love to see the FA step in and say from round 3 onwards, if you're a league team, you can charge £10 for adults, £5 for kids. That will get the attendances back. If you get the attendances back, clubs will then feel more obliged, in my view, to play stronger teams. The amount of times you'll see a team like West Brom draw somebody like, I don't know, Birmingham City. It's a derby game, but the West Brom manager's thinking about relegation worries. The Birmingham manager's thinking about promotion, and he's in the middle of a season. It's January time. It's wet, cold. He's lost a lot of players to injury. And the game's played in front of half a stadium with, semi-reserve players playing. That's where the magic of the Cup's gone. I think if you get more and more people back, like the attendances are doing, I think it's going to be more of a celebrated event. And to answer your question around the Wembley semi-finals, I had a bit of an idea about this. Super League does something similar where they play the games on the same day in the same stadium. If we've got to use Wembley twice, let's have an FA Cup semi-final day. Blank out all other football and do 2 games back to back. Start one at 12:30, the other one at 5 o'clock. And then you've got a lovely full afternoon which is dedicated to the FA Cup. They need to sort out the broadcasting issue because I appreciate one game will be on one channel, one will be on the other. But that would be a fantastic FA Cup occasion. A bit like the Cup final that used to have 3 hours of build-up and things like that. You'd have one game to review and one to preview with the time in between. I think it would work really well from a television point of view, and it would be a great occasion for fans.
It'll be a bit of a job getting everybody out and everybody back in, and then you've got 4 sets of fans, and I don't know. I could see some issues.
Okay, 12:45 kickoff, 7:45, 7 o'clock kickoff. I feel like suggesting that if you're going to have to do the Wembley thing, which we will, there's no doubt. Whatever people think, you're going to have NFL there, you're going to have concerts there, you're going to have things there till Kingdom Come. Now they're so up to their eyeballs in what they owe, and that's fine. It's done. I don't think it takes away from the event because a team like Reading, unless they get in the playoffs, they won't be going to Wembley. A team like Villa, definitely. When are they going to go to Wembley? They're not going to get into a playoff final unless they get relegated, and chances are they're not going to get to many cup finals.
And the Villa fans are now up in arms.
I'm just being honest. I feel rude, but, I'm a Crystal Palace fan, and I must say I vowed to myself that when Wembley got rebuilt, I'd never visited old Wembley. We had one playoff final we won at Cardiff, and I loved the occasion. It was fantastic. Cardiff did really well to host the football there when it did. But when we drew Watford in the playoff final, it was fantastic, and I was so pleased to go to Wembley to watch my team, and I vowed I wouldn't go and watch anyone else's, no other stuff at Wembley till I saw Palace at Wembley, and we won as well, which made it better. And it is a fantastic facility, and do you know what? If it means fans have to come back twice, I'm sure you won't find many Liverpool fans that will moan about going to a semi-final and a final.
Right, let's have a quick review of what we've chosen then for the weekend. I'm on Chelsea at evens.
I'll go for Man United in that game. I just think they're overpriced, and it could be anything. It'll be a draw and we'll both look silly, but funny things happen this time of year. And if Chelsea play like they do against QPR, Man United will beat them.
I think we're both agreed that both Wolves and not Wolves.
Bournemouth
and Watford are both going to win. Just looking, Middlesbrough still 10 minutes into the second half. Middlesbrough still 1-0 up, and I'm going for a Villa 2-1. Yeah,
well, I think we're both. Arsenal's a bit of a boring one, aren't we? So we won't worry too much about that. But yeah, no, I think I'm glad we both agree on Villa, and I hope. I'd like to see them do it, and there's nothing against Liverpool. I know we've got an awful lot of Liverpool followers. I just think they had a horrible, horrible time of it. They've had no money to spend. Tim Sherwood, people don't like him as a manager. I wouldn't want him as Palace manager, but he's got something about him. He's a great short-term solution, I think, for teams like Villa that need to get out of trouble quick.
Simply for me, it's about value. I mean, I've got nothing against Liverpool. I've got nothing against any of the sides. I'm just looking for a bit of profit, and I'm looking for the value price. And I think backing Villa to beat Liverpool is where the value is. The same as with Arsenal. Like I say, I'm going to go half-time Arsenal to be winning at 1.66. So I'm taking a 4-6 and an 18-1 shot on the FA Cup games.
Why not? And that's what it's about, you know. And guys, what I would say is we love to hear your bets. This will go up on YouTube. Put your comments on there. Tell us what you're backing and why. Don't forget, you can download the app. We've got everything on the right-hand side that you can see in our showcase. We do Android and we do Apple versions as well. Check us out on Facebook. We do have to like the page. Find us on there, OLBG. And come join in the tipping contest. We've got loads of them. They're free to enter. And they're really good fun. And if you're any good at it, you might win some prizes, unlike Steve and me.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, we look forward to seeing you guys back next Friday. Don't forget, you can subscribe on the YouTube channel and just pop back in, and we're welcome to have contributors on as well. It's certainly not going to be me and Steve telling you what we're backing this weekend. We want to have as many members on as possible. If you're new to OLBG or you've been around a little bit, don't be shy. Come and introduce yourself and come online, and we'll have a chat about what you're betting, and you can tell us how you pick your football teams, because I'm sure it'll be better than my selections.
We'll put it up on Sunday night, so we've got a whole week for you to organise yourselves to get involved, but and we'll also highlight which games we're going to play. So we're going to talk about. So if you're actually a fan of one of those teams, particularly would like you to join in, so we can get your view, and you may even be able to give us some information that we don't know.
Definitely, especially if you're a lower league fan and you know that half the team's injured before the bookies know about it. We'd love to hear from you. But all I'd like to say is thank you very much for Steve this evening, and we look forward to hearing your comments and feedback. Bear with us, guys. It's a relatively new concept, but we want as many viewers involved as possible. And yeah, get on board with us and have a great weekend. Enjoy it.
Good chat. See you next week.